Bleeding Cool Comics Chatter. I am your fantastic host, Josh Davison, uh, comic reviews editor of Bleeding Cool, and I am joined as ever by my loyal comrade. I didn't say sidekick because that'd be
Oh,
weird because I'm a lot younger.
I'm nobody's sidekick.
Jeremy Conrad, our
So, I'm Jeremy Conrad. I write about collectibles and baseball and all kinds of other things for Bleeding Cool.
he's got a magnificent wall of wrestlers behind him.
Yes, I do.
And today we are going to be talking about a lot of number ones, which seems to be a theme for the past few weeks, especially with Image. Image is like new titles everywhere, everyone, which I'm not complaining. A lot of them have been really good. Uh, yeah, so we're going to be talking about Crude, Dead Hand, Immortal Men, Domino, and Exiles. And we're going to be starting off with let's do Crude,
Okay.
which was
I didn't
which
like.
uh, well, I'll start with the premise for the audience before we get to whether or not we like it. It was a Crude is about a Russian man named Peter.
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 I hear Peter.
I mean, yeah, because like Peter Rasputin, the Colossus. But yeah, uh, but Peter. Actually, you know what? To stay on theme there, speak Colossus. Colossus, but not actually Colossus, is is a hitman, criminal type person. He has a son. His son is not. They live in very confusingly in a city called Vladimir. That one threw me off because it's like, who's Vladimir? Why do we keep talking about Vladimir? Which one's Vladimir? Yeah, they live in a city called Vladimir. He's bisexual and he doesn't feel like he can express himself there. Moves to say what people refer to as a glorified labor camp city called Blackstone,
Yeah, that was Blackstone.
and he dies, and he gets sent back to his father, who decides to get back into the business. So it's Russian. It's Russian John Wick, but instead of a dead dog, it's a dead son.
Jeez. I I found the narrative in this book to be completely confusing. Like
Yeah,
you said, with the city threw me off, but then because of like the flash forward, like flashbacks and constant switching of character perspectives, it was very difficult to read.
yeah. Like I really like the premise. I'm a sucker for revenge stories a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, so I mean, Death Wish is one of my favorite movies ever. The original one, not that frickin' uh, Bruce Willis catastrophe that came out earlier this year. But yeah, I'm a sucker for revenge stories. So I was like, okay, this sounds cool. And then I read it. I was like, okay, I don't know what's going on. And it kind of okay. So it's kind of like one of those weird things where it's like, but I knew the premise before I read the comic, and so I'm just waiting for the comic to get to the premise. Now that's not necessarily the comic's fault. The Comixology just essentially just spoiled the entire first issue on the site. But that was kind of one of my digs about this. It was just like, okay, I know what's going to happen here when we get there. But again, the story structure was really confusing. Uh, and again, the flash forward, the flashback, and I like Gary Brown's artwork, but like the son it began with a K, and Peter, like they don't look distinct enough from one another,
Oh,
and,
there's
and
there's a little bit of wrinklage going on,
yeah, and it's like the slight difference in hair color. So it took me a second to catch on to that.
but even then, in a couple of scenes where they're like talking to each other, I forgot which one was which.
Yeah, and there's the one scene when they're talking to each other. I thought he was his brother because I thought he already died because they came back from a church. So it was like,
Yeah,
oh, was that the funeral? It's like, oh no, he's still alive, and then he's dead, and then yeah,
it's very confusing, and it takes forever to get started.
it's
And
a great premise. It's a great premise. I like the struggle about the son trying to struggling. He's kind of feeling constrained by what he thinks is a sort of a 9 to 5 father who sells insurance, and feeling restrained because Russia still isn't too up to date on treating non-heterosexual people like people.
But
Uh,
they didn't really dig into that at all. They,
yeah,
the main character, the son, goes into a monologue about how we should be able to walk the streets together, hand in hand, and all that. But then he's dead, and I don't think he ever shared that side of himself with his family. So I mean, they might touch on it. That might be why he's dead. I don't know, but they don't touch on it, and I mean, it feels weird that his family wouldn't know that about him, and that if they touch on it in later issues, he won't be able to have that dialogue with his father and stuff like that. It felt weird.
from the setup, I am expecting that will oh Lord, we'll probably have more flashing back and forth. I just realized because a part of the explanation of the premise is that he has to discover who his son is, and that sounds like a really cool idea. And it would be kind of interesting, and he's sort of like a detective type thing where he just like meets people who knew his son, finds journals or whatever, and maybe get an image of what his son was like. But based on this first issue, it'll probably be a lot of flashing back and forth and a muddled narrative as a result. So I don't know, and we're going to be going a bit quicker tonight for those watching at home. So I'm going to go ahead and try to get to a conclusion here. I like the idea. If the follow-up issues are more coherent, I probably will really enjoy the series because again, the premise is interesting. The premise is there, and and again, it could be more, and it's a revenge story, but I could see it being more than just a revenge story with if it decides to explore more of his son's troubles with being bisexual in Russia, even modern Russia. So there's places it could go as long as it just doesn't try to get so cute with the storytelling order.
That's kind of what Steve Orlando does, though.
His JLA is pretty coherent. I've been enjoying that.
Okay, like I this issue it didn't grab me, so I'll probably flip through the second one just to see if maybe the first one just didn't grab me right away and the second issue will hook me. But I'm not expecting it to. Not the other book about Russia is the one that I like this week.
That was interesting, and we'll probably be getting to that soon. So, final verdict for me: I'm frustrated, but still curious enough that you'll probably see a second review for number two from me on Bleeding Cool. Don't take a number two on me. That's disgusting. I'm not into that. Sorry.
There's none of that in this book.
Yeah.
There is nudity.
There's a penis. There's
yeah.
Yeah. So that's my opinion. I'll probably check out for the second issue because I'm still curious, hopeful, but still frustrated. And what about you?
Yeah, like I said, I flipped through the second one. I'm not expecting it to grab me though. At first, it's one of those. Well, at least Image is telling us it's a 6-issue miniseries before it comes out, or in the first issue, instead of leaving it open-ended based on sales, kind of, which is form nowadays with all the comic companies. It's an ongoing until it isn't.
We're just going to retroactively argue that this Falcon comic was a miniseries instead of a promised ongoing.
There's a Marvel. I think the Marvel book that I didn't like this week is set up to be a miniseries already, but I can also see them trying to turn it into an ongoing. But we'll get there.
Yeah, and having discussed this prior, quick aside, something interesting about that particular Marvel book, Comixology is listing it as a miniseries, which I was under the impression that it was going to be an ongoing.
You could never tell me that character would just be given an ongoing right from the get-go without proving it sales-wise.
Well, the writer though,
we'll get there.
Yeah. So that's Crude. Then we moving on to Dead Hand, which was quite good. I enjoyed it, and I like to call it the inverse Winter Soldier book because it's a
good way to describe it. Yeah.
Of course, that could just be me judging everything by the basis of Winter Soldier. Admittedly, that wasn't the invention of Cold War spy stories by a long shot. But yeah, so Dead Hand, a an American spy who's dressed up like a superhero in a really good costume. Actually,
Yeah,
I really dug his costume,
the costume design for that character is ridiculously cool.
which is also the reason I thought of the Winter Soldier because like he's got the red star all over the place. I'm like,
Yeah,
hey,
kind of got
man.
like the costume's got like the lines for where the medal would be on his arm for Winter Soldier. They even reference Captain America in the book.
Yeah, oh man.
Anyway, yeah.
So yeah, so he's a uh, what's his name? Carson? I want to say his name is Carson.
Carter, I thought.
Carter. You're right, Carter. I think his
Yeah.
name's like Carter Carlson. I don't know.
Yeah, it's thanks Kyle Higgins. Yeah.
There's but he was essentially just a U.S. wet works secret agent type guy during Cold War. At the end, he finds a handful of spies that have essentially been left to starve. Not spies, scientists who've been left to starve. We get a bit of his backstory. All American boy, wanted to be a superhero when he grew up.
Yeah.
Dad died when he was still like when he was only 10. When the son was 10, not when the dad was 10. This isn't this isn't Futurama where we're gonna like be our own grandfathers and such. But yeah, so he becomes a secret agent, part of a team. One of the team defects. It's very much a hey, here's everything you need to know about this character first issue, which that's fine. When you make it compelling as this, yeah, sure, fine, have a full origin issue because I had a lot of fun.
That was a lot of world building too.
Yeah, and you get to the end where he's a sheriff in a town called Mountain View, with a twist. I actually don't want to spoil here
Nope,
because
we're not. Well, nope, we can't spoil that twist because I was like, wow. When I got to that last page, I was like, that came out of nowhere. I kind of suspected something was up, but then he comes at you with the twist, and you're just, oh, they haven't done that to me in a comic in a while. Yeah.
yeah, it's like what is okay, that completely recontextualizes everything. I'm really curious where we're going with this. So yeah, like we're actually not going to talk about that twist here, but it was really good, and just I like Carter. He's a he's a bit of like a stoic soldier boy type, but he's got a dark side for sure. He's interesting. He's got like this weird mixture of like boyish, like childhood uh altruism tempered by working in a in the Cold War where morality was very very gray. So yeah, it was just really interesting. I really dug it,
Me
and I'm a
too.
huge fan. I was a huge fan of Brubaker's Cats in America, which is a lot of Cold War, so, spy thriller type stuff. So yeah, sorry to cut you off there.
No, you're good. I'm just nodding in agreement. I really, really, really like this. Kyle Higgins has been hit or miss with me over his career, but this is good Kyle Higgins. He's obviously stepped his game up a little bit since the last time I read his stuff.
Yeah, this was, and it was just, so it was like, yeah, it's drawing on a lot of things, like it definitely seems to be taking some notes from Brubaker's Cats in America and Winter Soldier for sure. But it's also the art kind of made me think of that too, because it looked a lot like Perkins and Butch Guice and Steve Epting, all those people who worked on that book. But which is good because those are like naming three of my favorite artists right there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's gorgeous. It flows well. It's interesting. It manages to jump around a bit without completely confusing the hell out of me. So that was nice.
It does what a comic should do when there's a change in narrative or sorry, something just like fell down in here. um, when there's a change in narrative or whose voice we're hearing things from, and it does a good job of making it very clear that that's what it's doing. And then when they get to Mountain View, right away it felt like since the Cold War stuff ended with him finding the scientists and then saying, "Let me show you what we've been working on," and then it goes to him as the sheriff. It felt like enough time had passed that you got away from the Cold War stuff, and by the time you get to the twist, you're not thinking of it, so it just wallops you over the head.
Yeah, because you know like the dead hand thing is going to come up again, but it's just you don't expect like the like dramatic nature by which that is going to twist everything we already think we know about the story. Also, speaking of Winter Soldier, had to retrieve this. My boy Bucky over here. But yeah, so yeah, that this one definitely recommended. It's very good.
Oh
Art's
yeah.
great. The writing's great. Just check it out. It's really solid.
I um I don't remember if they said this is a mini or not. I'm pretty sure it's a long form series. It's not a mini.
Yeah,
So I hope that I hope that it has an intriguing enough story to last for a good like year. Like 12 issues would be great.
yeah, because like the premise seems like it's got to end at some point, but it seems like it could go on for a bit, and that would be great. So yeah, that
Oh,
one's.
I'm yawning in anticipation of the next book we're talking about.
I know, right? Because that is the exact level of energy that was in the story. That's right, everybody. We're talking about the Immortal Men, which the premise is, oh man, and
It's Wildcats.
that's actually, I don't know enough about Wildcats to throw that to get that, unfortunately. But yeah, so it's the funny thing. I was like, okay, so it's Harry Potter, but it's a secret clandestine group of superheroes instead of magic people. And the funny, I mean, I have never read Harry Potter, but it was like, okay, so there you got Caden Park. The why are Marvel and DC? They're way better at like drilling a name home than Image and IDW tend to be. Because like, yeah, I don't like Caden Park. He bores me, but I know his name.
It's because it's a unique name, like Carter Cartwright, isn't it? It besides sounding similar, it doesn't hold your attention. And plus, if you're trained to read superhero books, when you're introduced to the hero, you tend to remember that because you know that later on you're going to have to remember this information more frequently.
I feel like there could be a discussion at some point about how I am like non Big Two comics really need to do a better job of getting the names to stick in the head because because I could talk all day about how memorable a character from an Image or IDW book is, but there's a very real chance I'll be able to recite the name. I could recite the title. Like I love Wicked and Divine, and I can remember I remember Persephone because it's a Greek goddess's name, but I'd have a hard time reciting the name of the main character on the fly.
Yep, I've read. I stopped reading that book like 2 or 3 issues ago, and I couldn't tell you a single non-god character's name in that book.
But
And I
yeah,
loved it. I
yeah, I
loved
love
it. It's
Wicked and
like
Divine.
sex criminals. I I honestly can't write Susie. That's the name of the girl. Besides that, I can't remember a single character's name in that book, and I love that book. I devour that book.
Yeah,
Saga, Marco and Alana and Goose and Hazel and the
I
Will.
I think that's actually an example of a book that's pretty good at driving the names home.
Yeah.
But anywho,
Anyway,
yeah. So Immortal
this is
Men, you
this
see,
is all this is all to prove that we don't really want to talk about the Immortal.
that's how boring Immortal Men is. We just started listing
We're naming comic book characters.
and just every Image book that's like just so infinitely better than Immortal Men. So yeah, so Caden Park is a special. He knows he's a special. The world doesn't believe he's a special, and it turns out he's right, and he is indeed a special. And I feel like I'm channeling Lindsay Ellis, the nostalgia chick here. But yeah, he's a special, and then figures out there's a secret war going on between two groups of the Immortal Men, which is this supposed to be the same group from the intro to Dark Knight's Metal? Because there was the Immortals, there was Ra's al Ghul and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I mean,
But instead of talking about those characters you want to talk about, because let's be honest, a book centered around Ra's al Ghul, Vandal Savage, Black Adam, that would be awesome.
yeah.
Uh, he's called Ghost Fist. It's the big ghost dude's called Ghost Fist. So yeah, so there's two groups of the Immortal Men. There's the House of Fighters and the House of Conquest. And the House of Fighters is all but wiped out by the House of Conquest. And House of Conquest has, I don't know, is it's also a lot of very Jim Lee designs here. Like the leader of the House of Conquest, I'm like, okay, that's somewhere between Hela and that main villain from the original Power Rangers series. But yeah, so they're trying to get to Caden Park because he's not only he's a special among specials. So we got to work that out. And yeah,
well, he's extra special.
Yeah, he's the super special. He's like I said, Harry Potter, which was. Wait, go ahead.
It felt like this book was just it was all centered around bringing back the Man Who Laughs.
Yeah, the Batman Who Laughs. That was. And it's just like he shows up briefly. He's like, "Hey, your evil deed, your evil scheme, I can make it better."
He's still here. That Batman that helped sell 1 billion copies of Metal because the design was cool. It's he's still here. He's in here. Hey guys, here's that Batman you like. He looks like a Joker with bondage gear on.
He looks like a Cenobite from Hellraiser. That's all I could see. Just hold on, I'm curious because like, does he have his fingers? Well, yeah, does he have his fingers? I can't tell. They never.
I don't remember. I wasn't paying enough attention.
he has his fingers back. I mean, I guess they could have stitched them back on, or I don't know. He's made of whatever, so he probably screws them back.
It could have that for all we know, this book takes place before the end of Metal. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair.
They don't do a good job establishing that. I thought all of these books took place after Metal, but who knows?
Yeah, so that's Immortal Men. It wants to set up this like whole new, pretty dense lore centered in the middle of DC Comics about these immortal people and creating new characters. Which again, here's what gets me. Like I get the idea of wanting to create your own characters and all, but I seriously feel like all of these people could have been someone else pre-existing in DC. Like the dude with the dude in the white hood could have been Vigilante.
It could have been Azrael.
Yeah, but he had the whole gun toting thing.
Yeah.
Ghost Fist could have been anyone else because that name is so bad. So bad.
Of these New Age of DC Heroes books, this one and Curse of Brimstone did nothing for me so far.
Oh, you didn't like Curse of Brimstone? That was my favorite after Terrifics. Terrifics is the best.
I like Sideways.
Sideways is all right. I haven't really revisited.
Terrifics is on another plane. I don't even count Terrifics as part of whatever this is. Terrifics should be just part of the main DC line, and it should run for 1,000 issues.
Yeah, that was Terrifics is. This is the first one though where I genuinely think it's like, because like I'm not a huge fan of Damage. Silencer I thought was all right. Sideways was all right. New layer of DC Comics here, but it's just so boring.
It's so commendable.
Yeah, like I respect and it seems like it should be good. I mean, I love James Tynion and I love Jim Lee generally, but just it's so lifeless. It's got the story, and it feels like it should be excited to tell you the story, but it just meanders on a bit. It kind of has this, and I feel like I'm going to be knocking on a couple of writers I actually really like here, but whenever like Jeff Lemire or Jonathan Hickman, mostly Lemire, is like on autopilot, you can really tell, because like I feel like a lot of his latter DC stuff back again, like Justice League United felt like really just autopilot, like. I liked when Jeff Parker took over and made it like a weird Brave and the Bold book before it ended.
Mhm.
But yeah, like it was just autopilot, and that's what this feels like. It's like it should be so excited to introduce you to its new world, new characters, weird ideas, good visual designs. I like the way the Immortal Men look, but just
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't like Jim Lee artwork?
for real. And
But
this
I
is
mean, this book's been delayed for like 4 months, hasn't it?
yeah, like I
Something
think
like that.
maybe the creative team, the editors are good back and like just does this book put you to sleep too?
I don't. Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah,
I suggest you take the $3 you were going to use on this book and buy the Terrifics.
yeah. If you already have both issues, buy another copy. It's just that good.
Yeah, just buy more. Make sure that every comic book store sells out of the Terrifics, because if that book gets canceled, I'm gonna
so
die inside a little bit.
yeah. I'm gonna take my never mind. I'm gonna I'm gonna like leave an angry voicemail for Dan Didio or something. I don't know. I'm not even sure if he's still in charge of all this, but
Probably used to that.
yeah, Dan Didio's probably pretty used to that. So yeah, so that's the Immortal Men. It's yeah, just
Meh,
it's bland. It's not
meh,
interesting.
meh. Hashtag meh.
Yeah. So I kind of want to end things on a good note tonight. So we're gonna go to
So
the
we're gonna
one.
talk about Exiles last.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I think I think we're gonna come to blows a bit on
Okay. I want to
Domino.
preface this by stating a controversial opinion that nobody at Bleeding Cool probably agrees with.
Oh
I
no.
don't. Gail Simone's a very good writer.
Ah,
I don't I loved her original Birds of Prey run. I haven't enjoyed a single thing I've read since then.
not even her Secret Six.
Nope, I
That's
didn't
like
like
her
that book.
opus. I love Secret Six
It
so
was
much.
okay. It was okay. I liked it more for the artwork. And
Oh,
and her new 52 Batgirl is awful, and it made me want
oh,
awful,
oh,
awful,
oh, you
awful.
bastard.
No,
That,
sorry.
who was
So
I?
so going into this book, I started reading it, and I was like, why do I recognize this voice? Why do I recognize this? Who is this? I had no idea who wrote this book before I picked it up. I got 8 pages in, and I was like, why does this feel like I'm reading oh no. And I flipped back to the cover. I said, ah, man.
Oh, because like because I'm not a big fan of Domino. She's kind of like one of those like generally I'm not a big fan of Domino. I might be after this book, but she's like one of those characters that I kind of lump with like Cable and just
See, I
like
like I like the, like, we'll call them third tier mutant characters, like some of the sillier ones where they're like, well, we already have mutants that can do pretty much everything. Let's make hers. She's really good at chance.
I kind of want to know what would happen if you put her next to Longshot. What would happen? Just
I would read that book as long as it's not written by Gail Simone.
you bastard. But yeah, because I was more interested in this as a Gail Simone book. 'Cause I adore Gail Simone, and
Yeah,
I
she's a
love
very person. I've met her. She's very sweet. She's fun to talk to about comics history. She knows her stuff. I can't get into her writing. I just can't. I don't know. I've tried. She's written almost every book that I've read. I just can't. I just don't like it.
I loved her New 52 Batgirl. I loved her. I adore her Secret Six. It's like one of my favorite series ever. I loved her Birds of
Secret Six
Prey.
I'll give you Secret Six. That was okay. I don't know how anybody could possibly defend her New 52 Batgirl.
I-
New
I'll admit,
I've been a Barbara Gordon fan since I was like 4, and it just felt like it completely crapped on her the entire Gordon family history, and it didn't do a good enough job explaining why she wasn't in the wheelchair anymore. It took forever to explain why she wasn't in the wheelchair anymore.
that made me
And when
laugh.
they switched to Batgirl Burnside, it was so much better that it just paled in comparison. And but Barbara is a fun character. She is not brooding darkness, rain in every panel that character. I can't have that with my Barbara. I'm sorry, Gail. I just can't have it.
That's the thing. I didn't think she was that dark. I thought the stories she dealt with were generally dark. I'll admit the surgery, the how she's walking again was one of the sillier things because it was like, oh, it's going to be a big revelation. It's a big surprise. Oh, it was just experimental surgery. That would have been my first guess.
And not to mention the fact that when it happened, I read like 3 issues later, and I was like, when are they gonna reveal why she's walking again? And somebody goes, they did. It was here. And I flipped back. I said, I don't even remember this.
But like, I thought it was, I thought it dealt with dark stories, but I thought it did a good job of keeping her light, which was like the opposite of like, oh man, we're tangenting a lot, but like the recent Nightwing story with Sam Humphries, which was needlessly dark, but also made Nightwing dark too, which is not why I read Nightwing. He's
I didn't read it.
He's the fun Bat family member. I was hyped because I love Sam Humphries and Green Lanterns. Like he made Green Lanterns my favorite Rebirth book, but it was upbeat. There's good chemistry. The villains were incredible. Like, but yeah, he went over to Nightwing and was like, okay, this is disappointing. Anywho, but back to Domino because
okay, back to Domino.
So the premise is, I mean, it's
Domino's doing stuff. There is no
yeah,
premise.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. It's like Domino. She's working with some other.
It's like the weakest premise ever. It's just like, oh, she needs to figure out who's stealing money from a logging company.
But that's kind of like the lead-in, because the real story is her birthday, and someone
and try to turn into Squirrel Girl. I'm just like, what is this? This is not Domino.
I dug it. I dug it a lot. Because I don't know. Because like one of the things that turned me off about the idea of Domino is I kind of expected her to be a pretty joyless character, but she was fun here. There's a little dog. It's adorable.
Yeah, but she's a mercenary. She's not.
I mean, but Deadpool's fun and he's a mercenary. I mean, he's fun for some people.
Deadpool has been established from the beginning, basically, as being a sillier character. Domino was more like Black Cat levels of sarcastic, not like Deadpool levels of silliness, where she talks to puppies and
you don't talk to dogs.
Has sweet birthday parties with her friends. I don't remember her being friends with some of those people. And I'm just, what is happening? I'm like, no. I thought we were gonna get a kick-ass Domino story where she finally gets some kind of spotlight and they can start building out some of these, like we said, third-tier mutants and making them stronger characters so they can eventually join X teams. And it's not like they're randomly thrown in there. But I don't feel like that's what we got. I feel like we got some book that's not truer to who the character usually is portrayed as, just because that's the direction that we tend to take books now. I don't like that.
I'll admit that we kind of like, because like I was kind of when I was reading, it's like, okay, she's snarky.
I'm trying to avoid saying that it's too girly.
That was like, okay, this is gonna be a bit snarkier. That's just that's kind of how Gail Simone generally writes, and B, that is kind of where we take characters these days. Because like, and we'll get to this with Exiles, but I was like, okay, so Blink's like a modern protagonist. She's a bit more chatty and snarky, but
yeah, which was annoying, but
I don't know. I mean, it depends.
It works more with Blink because that's who Blink is. Domino has never. I mean, it's been here and there, but only when she's been in a Deadpool book, because you have to have characters being sarcastic and snarky around Deadpool. That's just a rule.
It's like a
virus. Doesn't matter who the character is.
I don't know. And bear in mind, like I have, like as Domino as a character, never really grabbed me. So maybe that's why I'm more receptive, because I just love Gail Simone. I love the way she writes books, and I kind of like that. I even like the weird little scene where she's like being really passive aggressive to Colossus, because they were kind of a thing on the Cable and X-Force team from like Marvel Now era. Yeah. So that was like I liked that. I liked the dog, and I liked that it kind of got into something of survivor's guilt with her because of her luck powers. getting people around her generally killed. So I thought that was a nice touch, and I thought you can really take that to some interesting places. So I really dug this. I'm going to be following a Domino comic, which is something I never thought I would say. So to wrap it up, because oh man, we also we tangented a bit. I definitely recommend it. It's fun. It's snarky. It's probably not what most people are used to with Domino, but I don't know. I could see it being a what's the word? Construction? Oh, it's not even a word, but I could
Crude.
what?
Crude.
Yeah, I could see that. I could believe this being the Domino I've seen before, just on a different day of the week. I guess I don't know. I was like the Diamondbacks in it. Diamondbacks cool. Not Luke Cage Diamondback, Serpent Society Diamondback. But anywho, so
I say buy Exiles instead.
uh, I prefer Domino, but I could definitely agree with the statement by Exiles, which is what we'll be moving on to now, because Exiles was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. It was the most Bendis-y book this week, since I know how much you love Bendis.
It was very Bendis-y. It's also I know I like that they brought back the old Nick Fury as the Unseen. That was cool.
Yeah.
I was like you didn't need to do that, but you did it anyway, and I respect that.
I was one of the I think 7 people in the whole universe that liked Original Sin.
I loved Original Sin. I'll defend it. It was like that's a discussion for another day. I don't know why it was really in love with Grant Morrison's Marvel Boy enough to bring in King Midas and the Exterminatrix as the principal villains. But I thought a lot about Original Sin was quite good. Also, it focused a lot on Bucky, which is a good way to sell a book to me, because he's still right here.
Also, it gave us Jane Foster Thor. So
yeah, it helped bring Jane Foster Thor about, and I really dug her. She's pretty great.
I haven't heard that before. That's the first time I've ever heard that.
I came up with it one day, and I was like, I'm a genius. Jane Foster Thor. Yeah. So that was I dug Original Sin, but yeah, so you have Blink. She's back. She's there's a time eater consuming the universe, the multiverse.
You have to be specific.
Yeah, because that's where we've gone with a lot of this comic book storytelling now, which I'm not complaining is interesting. The Talus, is that what it's called?
Yeah, I think the thing on her wrist.
Yeah, this is where I come clean and admit that the Talus, where I've not read a lot of previous Exile stuff. My dad's really into it, but it was never really something that I followed. But I was still hyped for this because okay, it's a new. They've been axing tons and tons of books, so here's one that's actually starting. It's got a bunch of weird random characters, and it's bringing in the freaking amazing Tessa Thompson Valkyrie into comics. So.
And we're gonna get Peggy Carter as Captain America, and we got an old grizzled Kamala Khan, which was awesome.
Old Lady Khan, and we got Iron Lad back because I really dug the old Young Avengers book. Actually, there's not really been a run of Young Avengers that I haven't liked because I liked Proto, Wicked, and Divine Gillen.
For me, none of them will ever compare to the original by Heinberg, but I've liked every volume. Yeah.
I dig. So I was cool. It was great to see Iron Lad back, and also kind of going along with the old by the way, he's Kang the Conqueror, but not Kang yet. So by the way, little side note, because my dad loves the Exiles and he's going to be reading this, but he when he saw the little baby Wolverine cartoon chibi Wolverine, he was like, no, why are you doing this?
I can't wait to see how they introduce that version of Wolverine. I hope it's in the next one.
Yeah, I think it is, and I'm fine with it. It's gonna probably be pretty funny. For
a second, I just want to say that the artwork is very action oriented, and I very enjoyed it. I like when the artwork carries your eye through the panel with action, And this one, I don't remember who drew it.
Javier Rodriguez.
Yeah, he is very good. I'm very excited to see what else he pulls out of his hat for this book.
He did Royals recently, which is, I think, pretty underrated.
I haven't been reading it.
It was pretty good. And also he did one of my favorite series of recent years. He and Dennis Hopeless did Spider Woman, and I freaking love that.
Okay, yeah. Well, I love that book. That explains. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, I loved that. And but Saladin Ahmed made this it shows the versatility I like, because like Black Bolt, it was fun, but it was more like emotion and existentialist, whereas this is just like a ton of fun. Also, I like it. It kind of feels like a good follow up book to Al Ewing's Ultimates, which was also very multiversal, existential threats and stuff. And so I dug that because I loved Al Ewing's Ultimates. That was one of my favorite books when it was coming out. Like, it was my favorite book of all new, all different Marvel. But yeah, it's fun. It's universe hopping, crazy, big idea sci-fi. It's got old lady Khan. How could you not like that? And
yeah, and it's like you said, it's got the unseen, and that stuff's really interesting. They bring in that alternate universe Nick Fury, and they automatically know he knows what's happening because he's Nick Fury.
Because he's Nick Fury.
I just love that. Yeah.
I just gotta tell you, we're too ugly to wear that dress.
Good stuff.
It's great. My only criticism is like at times it re-explained itself, and I get that you need to re-explain. Like, I get the idea that, like, oh, Blink has to tell Khan what's going on, but it could have been truncated a bit. But even then, but that was just slowing down the pace a little bit. But not enough but it wasn't that big of a problem. It was like, okay, so that's that. Okay, we're talking about this again, but it was still just like fast moving, fast paced, great art. It's just a ton of fun, and yeah, I definitely very highly recommend this.
Same.
All right, so we got Crude, which is maybe check back issue 2, The Dead Hand, which was pretty amazing. Yeah, definitely buy that. Immortal Men, buy another copy of Terrifics. Domino, I adored, but Jeremy didn't like.
If you like Gail Simone, buy it. If she's not your favorite writer, then you buy it if you like Domino, just so you can keep supporting the character.
And then Exiles, which was
Exiles, you should buy. Yeah.
All right, well, I believe that wraps it up for tonight. I am your host, Josh Davison. You can find my work on Bleeding Cool, where I am the comics reviews editor, and I will hopefully actually be getting a reviews team soon, so that'll be really cool. And this is I'm joined by Jeremy. Where can they find you, Jeremy?
You can find me on Bleeding Cool, writing about toys and all of the solo stuff's hitting tomorrow. Or by the time you hear this, is already hit and you've already bought it all. And as I get it, I'll have reviews up, and I write about baseball almost every day. I'll have some movie reviews up, and you can talk to me on Twitter at Jeremy Ohio.
Oh yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Josh Davison Bolt, because the Thunderbolts are amazing.
Where Mark Hamill tweeted at me this week and made my whole existence mean something.
I saw that. That was awesome.
I kid you not, I took a screenshot of that, and I'm going to print it out at Walgreens and put it in a frame.
You should. That's amazing. All right, well, we'll see you hopefully next week, everybody. So,